And I just want to go through a story with you before we enter into prayer. I want us to go to Revelations chapter 12. Now, a great sign appeared in where? In where? A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Now, before you move it to verse 2, I just want to teach you how to read the Bible. When you see heavens in the Bible with an S, it's talking about the second heaven, where there are principalities and rulers of darkness. When it talks about the heavens with an S, it can also be talking about the earth realm. But when you see heaven without an S, that means it is the third heaven, where the Bible says in the book of Psalm 109, I believe, that he has established his throne and he rules there in the heaven. And so up there, nobody can challenge him. The second heavens, the third heavens, fine, do you. But when it comes to the third heaven, you cannot play with God. And so it says, now a great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. So here we have John the Revelator. By prophecy, he was stepping back into the spirit realm to see what was going on. And here it says that there was a woman displayed in heaven. And this woman, she had the 12 stars upon her. And the Bible says that the moon were under her feet. That means this woman was very powerful. And here, remember, John was caught up to see what was going on. And so I just want you to know that before you go and lay hands on anyone, before you go and pray for anyone, before you do any type of spiritual work, I want you to have an understanding that you must be caught up. You must be able to see what is happening before you touch that person. And you see, this is why we warn against so many people doing whatever it is. One man of God was preaching the other day, and he said, in the middle of deliverance, the Lord, he spoke to the Lord. He said, Lord, show me what is going on. He's a deliverance minister. He does it all the time. It would be easy to pray and cast the demon out. But he said when he was caught up, the Lord showed him that the girl's body, her soul was not in her body. And so if he cast out that demon, he would now be praying for a dead body to arise. And so he told her that I need you to call her forth. When she wakes up, then you cast the demon out. You see, when you don't have spiritual insight into the spirit, you do things haphazardly and you think you are doing the right thing when you are making the situation worse. And so John the Revelator had an understanding of this, and he knew that before I can speak, I need to be caught up here, and I need to have an understanding of what exactly is going on. And so that is what you see here in chapter 12. In the beginning, he saw what was happening in the beginning in the spiritual realm. But it began to manifest in the earth realm. And as we continue, you'll see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head. On his heads. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. Stay there. This is the story of Jesus. This is the unveiling of Christ that is happening here. the Bible says that there was a woman who had the moon underneath her, and she had a bunch of stars above her. And as she was in pain travailing, Herod came in the physical form, but in the spirit it was a dragon. And if you remember in the book of Genesis, God spoke in the garden and said that the seed of a woman would come and bruise the head of a serpent. And because it was the spiritual realm and things happened faster there, the serpent now grew to be a dragon. And so what John the Revelator was seeing what was happening in the days of Jesus while he was being born. Because we all remember the wise men went because they had learned the times and seasons, and they went to Herod and told him. And so Herod was the dragon. Now, I don't want to get too much into this, but Jesus, my mind is everywhere. But Jesus once had a parable. And he said there was a certain officer that went to Rome to go and get powers. Who Jesus was referring to was actually Herod. Herod went somewhere to go get powers to become a king. And he knew that he was not the king. And therefore, he had to make sure that when the true king came, he had to go and try to take him out. And so in doing that, what happened was now the dragon is standing there in the spirit, and this has already happened. And so John the Revelator is now seeing all that has happened. And the Bible says his tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Do we remember? This whole story is about 3 different parts. His tail drew a third of the stars in heaven. Remember when Satan was coming down, what happened? He drew a third of the angels down with him. He drew a third of the angels down with him. And when he drew the angels down with him, the Bible says, and the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. And Herod sent a decree and said that every child who is 1 and under should be killed. Yes or no? Continue. She bore a child who was to rule nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Now, when we go back to Daniel chapter 7 or 17, I believe 7. When we go back there, let's go. Someone say, let's go. Let's go. Someone say, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. When we go back to Daniel chapter 7, 13 to 14, and then we'll come back here. It says, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, like the son of who? Coming with the clouds of heaven, he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is everlasting, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom, the one which shall what? And so when we go back to Revelation chapter 12, here we see that the Bible speaks of someone getting caught up and being given the nations. This was the death and the ascension of Jesus Christ. Continue. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God that she should feed her there 1,260 days. Anytime you see woman in the Bible, I want you to understand that if there's not a name attached to it, he's talking about the church. And so the church had to go into hiding while Jesus was caught up in the air. But the Bible also said that there was provision made. And so as I was reading it, I learned that in the midst of your trouble, God will prepare a place that everything will already be provided for you, that you won't have to suffer. And he said that you will be fed there, and he knows the number of days that you will stay in that season of barrenness, in that season of poverty. He knows the days that you will stay there, but he has provided all provision for you.